Good afternoon, everybody. And we are back on this lovely Friday afternoon. And yeah, it's another day. We are carrying on, still doing lockdown, if we can say so. Today, I am chatting to another cool fisherman and a fly fisherman, ex-South African guy living in the States at the moment. And his name is Jako Lucas. And Jako is a fantastic fisherman. He's traveled all over the world, caught some amazing things, and he's also a brilliant filmmaker. So that's what I want to chat to him about as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be another really interesting chat, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, if you guys are watching, please comment, ask your questions, so we can chat about them, and I'll give it through to Jako. But yes, I think it's going to be another really cool one. So just waiting for Jako to come. All right, here we go. Good morning.
How are you?
All right, and you?
Good, thanks. Sorry, I wasn't too sure to start off in Afrikaans or English, but yeah.
We can do it in English, but if you want to switch over to Afrikaans, I'm more than welcome to do that. It's not a problem.
I'm sure there's going to be some Afrikaans words at some point.
Yeah, definitely. So, are you doing on that side of the world?
Good. We just bought a new home here in Austin, Texas. So we just moved in, and I've just got bags and bags of stuff around me. And I wanted to sit in the office. We've got the office set up, but my wife's got a Zoom call, office call on every Friday. So I went to my man cave, which I still have to sort out. But no, it's good. It's the strangest times. I mean, obviously. We have kind of been following what's going on in South Africa, and it's just even now, anywhere we go, I mean, I know people have this misconception that America is crazy because they just let everybody out, but there's still a lot of precaution and stuff that gets taken. But it's just everything is just so bizarre.
It is crazy, but I believe Texas has got some of the least restrictions in the States.
They do, but it's a big place. So for you to go into somebody's in 6 feet is or 6 foot is close. So it's basically any shop that you go into, you still have to wear masks. So people can still do some shopping. But like I've been lucky enough to be able to guide over these last couple of weeks. But I mean, I have to literally every day sanitize my boat. Clients need to stay as far as they can, possibly away from me. I would sometimes help them land fish if it's too big, or they have to land the fish themselves. But most of the clients I've had are Texans, so they can just drive in. So, I mean, I've been lucky in that sense. But I see now they've opened gyms in Texas and Arizona and all sorts of places. So I think they're still pushing it a little bit, but it's tough. Eh? It's strange.
I follow some of the American stuff quite closely, and I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and the guys he talked to are quite interesting. And from what it sounds like is that the stats in the States is completely out of whack in terms of that they are claiming for COVID-related deaths, and it's not really, or they can't prove it, all sorts of stuff like that. So
the thing is, it's both sides. I think the news that we get from South Africa and those places, which we always try and follow every morning, we wake up, we watch the news and stuff, is always skewed, and vice versa. They always try and blow stuff up. They say there's so many cases of COVID here in the US, but there are just so many people, and they do so many tests. So It's all skewed, but you know, I mean, I still think we when we started seeing this all go down, we went on lockdown pretty early, and we were staying at we were already at home for 5 weeks before people were deemed to be on lockdown. So we took the precautions really early, and we still keep very safe. We go out to shop, and then I go out guiding, but otherwise my wife's at home. Her offices are closed. Well, and I think next month they're looking at opening up where they can go 2 different groups, so they still keep the distance. So there's lots of stuff being taken, but precaution being taken. But I don't know. Honestly, everything is still so. Everybody gives everybody a hard time for not doing the right thing, but it's still a very big uncertainty. It's still nobody knows.
Yeah, but well, here in South Africa, I saw a joke the other day going around saying that does the president know that Mitchell's plane is already on level 1?
Yeah, they've been on level 1 the whole time.
it's I say just open it up. Tell the people, wear a mask, sanitize the hands, do what you can. But at the moment, it's a mission. It's like my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. She's a nurse, so she's got to work, obviously, because she's an essential worker, and he works for a paint company. But now the kids can't go to school. She needs to go, and he needs to start working half day, start going into the office. But now, what do they do with the kids? So it is a huge stuff up here, and it's really working on people's nerves and mental health and everything. So it's not fun.
Yeah, and I know it can't be good for the economy and everything. And like I said, we still, like we said, message yesterday, we still very much proudly South African. We fly the flag high here, so we're always interested in what's going on there and speak to our parents. And we've been trying to come and visit South Africa, trying to get plane tickets booked, but again, we've got no idea when we will be able to fly in. So yeah, I feel sorry. There's a lot of people that gets very horribly affected. We've been very fortunate and lucky, and but again, it's when all this thing started, they said the easiest thing to do is wash your hands, and not to kind of stretch out on this whole COVID thing, but for me, it's straight. Shouldn't you be doing that after you go to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff? Anyway, it's yeah. Anyway, we'll get there. But yeah, yeah, it's and I'm sure now we're gonna sort of extend more on the fly fishing and fishing industry, but it's gotten hammered extremely hard.
Right. So enough of the negative stuff. Let's check on things. I've been following you for a while now on social media, and I can't remember where it was that I found you. Back in the middle 2000s, I was doing a bit of guiding myself in the garden route, and I made a lot of connections in fly fishing circles back then. But I think the place where your name popped up for me, or that I really noticed you, was when you released Gangsters of the Flats. that video with the GTs, and that was incredibly insane. But that was in like 2008, 2009, somewhere there, if I remember correctly.
We filmed it in I'm just trying to think, because we were guiding in the Seychelles from 2010. I guided in Seychelles from in 2006, and then we were guiding, and then the piracy thing happened, and then we were locked down a little bit, and we were only able to. Then we headed back to Farquhar, and that's when we filmed. That's when I filmed the Gangsters of the Flat. That was around. We filmed around 2000, and I'm trying to remember. It was either end of 2010. I think that's when it was, or 2011. And then immediately kind of made something after that video-wise, because that's also where we discovered that that GT's eating the birds. And unfortunately, at that stage, I was such a bad filmmaker. Not saying that I'm much better now, but I would have been able to film a lot of that stuff when it went down at that point, way early. Obviously, the guys from the BBC crew did probably the most insane job of filming that ever. But that's kind of when it all came. And with Gangsters of the Flat, when I was editing that, I was actually guiding in Norway at the time, because the guys from the Drake mag asked, they saw sort of a snippet, and they asked if I could do something for the Drake Awards. And I was guiding in Norway, guiding 18 hours a day, editing when I could, sleeping, standing up, and eventually got it to the guys from the Drake mag. And I think that's kind of where it took off, because apparently Tom By from the Drake messaged me and said people were standing on tables going crazy when they saw it. And it's crazy because we've been guiding for them for a while, and it was for us. It's still every time's amazing. Doesn't matter, but it was definitely something new that I think the US people didn't know about as much, and yeah, that kicked off. I mean, it's hard to beat a GT.
Yeah, but it's like I spoke to Daniel Goes, who did the fly fishing for the tarpon of the tubes, and that was in late 2000s or the early 2000s, and he caused major waves. And then I spoke to Stefan Dombas.
Yeah.
You know him as well. I think you've worked together.
I also watched the podcast that you did with him.
Yeah, so it was all that same kind of area that fly fishing did. A lot of guys did some amazing stuff that put fly fishing on the map again for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's the photography was always a super nice thing to me, but I saw the trend going into more people wanting to see visual stuff, because I was watching all that stuff from Stefan, Feldsol Media, and Daniel Goss, and those guys. We were watching those on the island on Farquhar, and I saw that got me really excited about going fishing. So the visual aspect started. I think that was kind of the way ahead. I mean, photography now is still such an essential key, but there are guys that are so. I mean, your photography and stuff is amazing, and there's guys that do it so well. But it also seems like a hard one to make a name or get into and create your own little genre and all sorts of stuff. But video has definitely been a good thing for fly fishing, for sure. You know, there's some people that will argue that it was horrible, because I get still quite a few messages on people telling me, like, how do I, like, all these places that shouldn't be known by people should be kept a secret, or people say that I'm a trust fund baby because I go to all these crazy places. But I can assure you, my mom and dad's a policeman and a teacher, and I'm Afrikaans, and I work for every damn thing I've got. I've been still very lucky to have a great family and wife and everybody that helps me along this crazy path. But that's, I mean, I think people should have a dream to go to these places.
Yeah. And okay, right. So what's your history? You're saying that your dad's a policeman, your mom's a teacher, you're Afrikaans. Where did you come from? How did you get into this whole fishing thing and all that?
So, I mean, I obviously, like most of us that's fishing crazy, born and raised, my dad was actually a competitive rock and surf angler. And from the day I was born, I've got a photo where I'm sitting in between his reels and a baby on the beach with the bucky pulled up, him busy fishing. So it was inevitable that was going to be. So my whole fishing stuff started off with rock and surf fishing. Obviously Afrikaans as it gets, so went to Afrikaans primary school, went to Hoërskool die Fakkel, which many people would think it's, but we had a great time. And then obviously university, Rau, and then known as University of Johannesburg. But I mean, I try to play a lot of different sports, and I loved all the different sports, but fishing was always the one that I kept on going back to. And I eventually, at some point, I just reached, like, all the other sports I was in, cricket and all that kind of stuff was just taking up too much time of my fishing time, and just put in all my time. And I've always been kind of a stubborn person. When I get a specific idea in my head, I think my wife would also say that, I've always said, once I met, so what happened is I was still in university. I still had 2 years to finish for my degree. And I met Keith Rosinas on a beach in East London randomly. And he had just come back from a season in Russia. And I saw he was kind of like done with the season. So usually when you're done with a guiding season, you look like you've done a whole guiding season without seeing other females, or you've just been on the water guiding clients and you're looking at fish. So we got talking, and it immediately, he told me that it's possible to do it as a job, but you have to follow these steps, and basically followed in his footsteps. I finished my degree, got a bachelor's degree in marketing, went to Farlow's in London, and you'll see a whole trend of South Africans that's gone through that shop, got to know the people, spent time with them. And a year later, I just phoned him up and asked him if he had a job. And I think it was almost like 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, he said, you're going to Cosmolido in the Seychelles, and I was guiding in Cosmolido, and that was kind of it. I mean, baptism of fire.
And at that stage, you've never caught a GT on fly or anything yet?
No. So I was guiding the Seychelles. So I was guiding clients for 4 years in the Seychelles before I could have picked up a fly rod. We caught the odd GT around the boat at night. So when the clients, so I had a feel for it, but never one on the flat. So I was guiding people into triggerfish, permit, all these crazy fish without really knowing what to do. But again, my whole philosophy in life is fake it till you make it, and you just push through and it'll happen.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. But I think that's what a lot of these youngsters that want to go and guide on these amazing locations is that there's a shit ton of work that goes into it that you don't get to fish.
No, I mean, South Africans are regarded as definitely, it doesn't matter where you go in the world now. The lucky thing and a nice thing that we've created is that the South African guide is very sought after, because we know, firstly, the guys work hard. We're very passionate about what we do. And I mean, most of the guys from South Africa are usually pretty good fly fishermen, and it's got a good history and know how to read water and all that kind of stuff. So, but with the guiding, so myself and Oliver White, pretty soon, we've been working on something, an academy called Knots Academy, where we're going to do a school here in the US about teaching guys what the whole process is, and also being able to build a future in the industry, actually make a living in the industry. But it's going to be a little bit, like we say, it's going to be a little bit of a come to Jesus speech, because we're going to tell them what it takes. I mean, you go to Alphonse now, you're going to be scrubbing boats for 6 months before you're going to be working really hard, and then you need to work your way up. I mean, I'm guiding in Texas now for 2 years, and I consider myself a rookie, and I pay my respects to all the local guides. I know what needs to happen. I fish a little bit, but never with clients. So there has been South African guides that are amazing, that are mentors, but there are guys that have fished with clients, which it's something that I would never want to do. It's, your clients never pay to watch you catch fish. And that's, for me, that's just how it is. If it's for other guys differently, good for them. And if the clients think it's great, then it's perfect. But when I'm guiding, and that's why I also felt really fortunate that it took me a long time before I started fishing the Seychelles myself, is because now I could learn how to guide a client within his capabilities. So if he can only cast 10 meters, I can move him into the fisher's position 10 meters. If you start fishing too early and you plugging out all these 20-meter casts or 30-meter casts, then you're gonna get frustrated with your client. So it's been a great adventure, and like I said, I keep pushing myself with all the different locations too. So it's a great job, but people need to understand it's not easy.
Yes. Well, when I spoke to Jono Shales, he had a youngster from South Africa mail him, asking me if he's got a job for him or something like that. And we had a long chat about that. And like the road that he's been on, it took him probably three odd years before he could guide his first client.
Yeah.
And he put in a lot of work, and he slept in like little rooms at the back of a pub for a long time, and poured beer so he could buy food and all sorts of stuff. So it's, everybody see the grandeur and the awesome places and the big fish and everything, but there's a lot of stuff, school fees that you guys had to pay to get there.
Yeah, and I think that is where social media is good and bad in a way. I think social media has been a great tool for us to grow the industry. But again, people see all those photos and they think, how can I do? And because that's one of the most messages I get of, like, how do I go and catch these fish? How do I become a professional angler or stuff like that? I get some funny questions, but I mean, all obviously relevant questions that's good to answer in the correct manner, just making people understand how it works. But the nice thing for me about social media is that, for example, having followed you on social media and spoken to you a few times before this call, is I feel like we've known each other for a bit. So when we meet each other actually face to face, we'll already have that connection, and that's brought the fly fishing community together really well. But again, then there's also a lot of pages of people that consider themselves rock stars, and I always find it very funny. I've spoken to a few people that's got a few followers, and they say that my fans, they always refer to their fans, and I'm always so embarrassed. I don't think anybody in fishing has fans. We've got friends that we want to fish with, but there's no fans. There's no fame. It's all BS.
As I always joke now with this whole lockdown being in Cape Town, and I always joke. I said the Cape Townians or the Cape Townian Instagrammers or Instagram rock stars or whatever, they only know two mountains. They know Table Mountain and know the Cedarburg, and both of them are closed to them at the moment. So they must be chewing off their freaking wrist to get up onto and to post another picture on Instagram.
It's true. It's also like, even I have to be honest with my personal one. I've posted one or two, or a couple now during lockdown, but it's honestly very uninspiring times, because I'd love to show people new stuff, but I mean, the matter of the fact is we can't. I'm trying to show some stuff from Texas because it is an amazing fishery, but yeah, it's been, well, from filming and all that stuff wise, it's been a tough time. But again, the right. Everything will be good again. I think I've always liked to look at the positive way. Everything will be fine. It's a tough time, but we always get through it.
Now, to get onto the filming thing is, okay, so you filmed Gangsters of the Flats, and that was more run and gun, if I remember watching it. You didn't plan much of that or have proper gear and all sorts of stuff at that stage yet. What did you shoot that with?
No, I mean, I was shooting with a Canon 550D, which is the entry level, like the beginner, proper.
The first one with video built in, if I can remember correctly.
Yes, first one with HD video. That's why that is the shakiest. I think I still did some stabilization in that video, but I mean, it's all over the show. And then obviously GoPro, which is something I've also got a love-hate relationship with. But that GT, when it comes up rooster popping on the flats, that was all GoPro. And again, those moments, and that's the thing that was always, you know, and I think you're probably also the same. When you see something and you don't capture it, it becomes an obsession. Every time I see it eat now and it's not on camera, I feel like it's a missed opportunity, because like I explained to everybody, those moments happen once. You can have 500 GT eats, but they're all going to be different.
Yeah, and also the thing is, now that people are starting to change it up, you were like one of the first guys to really capture it, and the action behind it and adrenaline and everything. But now guys they must get an underwater eat of the GT. So they're freaking teasing that thing in to 5 meters and putting a fly in front of it to get it on a camera.
Yeah, when the guys were filming that Cosmo movie, the Yeti Presents Cosmo movie, we were at one point, they had a custom made housing. I mean, I was drooling over that camera gear, because we had 3 Reds, we had 2 Inspire drones, we had everything there. And within the first sort of, we ended up only having 1 working Red because the 2 got drowned. But what happened is they actually had an underwater housing for that one, custom built. At the time there wasn't any. And at one point when the fishing was really good on Cosmo, we were, I don't know, it didn't make the cut. So I think some of those shots were out of focus, because obviously there's a lot of stuff that needs to go right. But we were at one stage popping those jeets up right to the lens and just setting the hook right, like just teasing them right in. So I still think Brad did that first one really mint. That one that I just posted on Fly Religion a while back. It's going to be hard to do that, but to do that with a quality camera is going to be, that's still my next obsession, on trying to get the perfect GT underwater eat. But
the problem with the Reds is, and I think you shoot at the FS7. I checked on your Facebook.
Yeah.
The problem with those things is that they haven't got great, or they haven't got any tracking for autofocus. So that's why you miss it, because there's no way you're gonna, that thing coming in at the rate of knots, trying to keep it in focus by racking it. It's insane.
And strangely enough, I don't know if you hear Brad in the video, it's actually quite intimidating, especially the bigger jeets over a meter. When they come in on the flats, you actually get a bit of a fright when you're trying to hold the camera. You have to be composed, and that thing opens its mouth, and you're trying to still stay steady. It's not easy, but I mean, now, as you know, also with everybody having cameras and drones and everything, to try and get the money shot that nobody else can do just requires that extra bit of work. So it would just have to, the other shot that I really wanted to see, and a guy, Ingvar from Norway, filmed it with a friend of mine, Helmut. It's in the fly fishing film tour this year, which we still hope to bring to South Africa at some point. But it is an aerial shot of following the GT from the back towards the angler and the eat. He actually gets to eat like that with 120 centimeter GT. It eats it 3 times. The shot is incredible. I mean, Franco also filmed some really good, Franco Buerta filmed some really good eats like that with his drone recently, but man, it's cool shots. It's just getting those angles that gets everybody excited.
Yeah. Are you gonna be looking at some of the new Canon mirrorless stuff because it's lighter and smaller and can shoot high resolutions and it's got great autofocus?
I mean, I still love the Canon stuff, but a lot of my stuff's changed over to Sony now. So the Sony A7 S2s and 3s, and well, no, there's not. I'm still waiting for the 3. But all the Sony stuff. So I still have a converter for some of my Canon lenses because there are some of them that are really, really nice. But I have to definitely look at camera stuff again. It's just been manic on this side with the guiding, and there's another project that I'm working on for next year's fly fishing film tour. It's all about jacks. So I still have a lot of camera gear, but I'm working with a good friend from Cold Collaborative, Shannon Vanderveer, that shoots for Red Bull and Sitka and all sorts of amazing brands that will shoot this on super high quality cameras that he's lucky enough to have. But I have to look at camera gear again.
But now the filming thing came to you by accident, if you want to call it that. And now you are really invested into the filming part. So how difficult was that to get into that kind of part? Because I know you still offer it as, but you do all these little projects on the sideline.
Yeah, no, like I also said to people in fly fishing, is if I've been lucky, but it's called a forever hustle. You're always busy with trying to do something which you can make an income with, and also the filming is just such a great element. I mean, that's all a passion project. To make no mistake on that, you're going to go in fly fishing filming and make a bunch of money. That doesn't happen. But the filming thing for me has always been an element to market the fly fishing industry. I've always had the vision that I wanted it to be more like snowboarding or skiing, where it's just become, or surfing, where it just has that better, cool look that maybe younger people can associate with. So the filming element is where I could bring that in. And like I said, I get messages, people that hate the music on some of the stuff and this and that. But I always say, like, I mean, then I'm not really talking to your specific audience if you don't like the music and all that stuff. But and that's where the filming has become very important to me, is firstly to capture these things, to create a dream, to build the fly fishing industry. And I think it's done pretty well. I think there's still a lot of room for growth. I'm starting to work with a specific YouTuber that's more on the conventional side. But I mean, if you look at that side, these guys have 1.5 million followers, subscribers on YouTube. These guys are creating content like crazy, and we've kind of missed the boat a little bit on that. So that's kind of my next step, is to really get invested with the filming side and just constant content, because it's people are, you can see how hungry people are for content, but they need to understand it's a lot of hard work and a lot of time that you have to spend on it, and where I have to still create an income from other stuff and the guiding and the sponsorships and stuff. So it's a tough balance, but and again, I've been very fortunate, but what people don't see in the background is waking up early in the morning, working until 1 o'clock at night, and trying to make sure that I get to all the different stuff, run different social media accounts, do this, do that, and then the guiding. The guiding is my favorite bit because I can break away and show some people fish. So
yeah, because you can switch off, you can and just concentrate on the client and be out there. But the editing part, it's, I look at some of these YouTube rock stars and I think, freaking hell, where do they get the time to put in, to set up everything, go, be it fishing, photography, whatever, get home, edit it, make sure it goes out every week at a certain time. It is incredible. It's insane. And if you're one-man show, that's difficult to do. If you've got somebody that can come in and edit, and but he must also come and do it for the love of the game for the first 5 years, because for
sure. And I mean, I don't think, again, another thing that people that see the videos realize how long that editing process is. I mean, it is painstaking because you're very excited to make a movie. Then there's these different phases. You reach the halfway point and you're so sick and tired of what you've made. You're wondering, is this really good? Is it bad? Then you have to show, I usually show it to my wife, so she probably gets sick of it at some point too. And then once you push, you just have to push that last little bit through, because you have to also realize any music that you use for that video, you're going to be sick and tired of that at some point too.
Never again.
So yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic process. But my favorite bit is once we see it on the big screen with the film tours, and you see people's emotions and specific parts, like that specific time and eat that Keith and I filmed in Yakutia. I mean, listening to how people went crazy in cinemas for that makes it. Then you just, this is all worth it.
Yeah, no, it's but it's an adrenaline filled game, and it's the same with photography, and it is as it is with fly fishing. We try to make it as difficult as we can for ourselves. And then we're never happy with it. There's no other fisherman out there that'll have a fly that gets to eat every cast, and he'll change it because it's easy.
Yeah, and that's the other bit. I feel like we almost putting ourselves in the most difficult situation where, firstly, nature has to do its thing within weather conditions, all that stuff, and then you're working with animal or fish that's going to do what it wants to do. Then you usually need a pretty good angler, because he needs to make it happen. And the nice thing with the Sony, and just to fall back on the camera stuff a little bit, and with more and more of the cameras, the Reds and stuff, is that end trigger. That end trigger for that back recording has been absolutely priceless to me. And I learned that from R.A. Biadi from Biadi Outdoor Productions, which have used those cameras for a long time, just to be able to film eats. To come back on, like, the stuff that I do is still a little bit more fish porn related. It's not very strong within the story itself with the substance, but I think it's just become what I do. So I'm not going to try and change what I do. I want to show people fish porn and get them excited. But and that end trigger to get the eats has been amazing. I mean, I can hold that camera, wait for it until we get the right eat, and then press record, and then, so I don't have to sift through hours and hours of footage. So it's been the best invention for fly fishing ever.
How does that work? Tell me quickly about that.
So I think the Sony FS700 was the first one that did it. Basically, you put it on the slow-mo function, and then what it does is it's got a trigger function where, as you point at the subject, obviously you have to keep focus and all that stuff, right? Let's say, for example, the fish eats but misses it. Then you don't have to press record. Then it records nothing. But so what it does is it continuously records and deletes. Sorry, that's what I mean. It records and deletes. So once I see what I really want, I press record, and it had already recorded that 3 seconds or 5 seconds back. So then you actually get that moment, and you don't have to have shot after shot after shot filming that. So it helps that specific eat a lot. I mean, in Russia, it took me 4 weeks to get an Atlantic salmon to eat a dry fly. And if I had to do 4 weeks of footage for one eat, it would have been a lot of footage to go through. But we got the shot, and I didn't have to do all those. But the Reds also do that now. The nice thing is with the Reds is that they continuously, you can press that thing. And because what happens sometimes is if, let's say, a tiger fish eats it, you press record, you get the eat, but you maybe miss the next 2 jumps because it has to reset and has to get back into it's actually processing that footage. So then you miss about 15 seconds after that before you're ready. But the nice thing is some of the shoots that I've worked on, we've had 2 cameras working together. So I would press record, and then I would say, okay, I'm out, and then the other guy comes in and then shoots. So we don't miss much.
Sure. That sounds interesting, but then you're looking at becoming like a quite big. I know the stuff you put out now is like really high end quality stuff, but then it becomes like a big production on the water, and to manage all that is a mission.
Yeah, I mean, now, like, I mean, for example, one of the shots that Shannon wants to film on this Texas thing, he's very famous for continuous shots. So basically, I don't know if you've seen Beyond the Horizon, is where literally he's got one of those Ronins, and then it's always a still continuous shot from, let's say, packing the cooler to walking out to putting it on the boat to driving out, and you follow the guy all the way. So, you know, to set that whole scene up, and you probably have to do one take because the guy throws a beer outside the cooler and it doesn't happen. There is so many failed shots that happens. And just to make sure that that all comes together is a huge production. I mean, setting up light and all that kind of stuff it's a story. And like I said, now the frustrating thing with filming with guys that's fishing that hasn't been with film before, you know, the fisherman is just as important. I mean, if he goes and catches a fish 200 meters away from me without me having the cameras roll, it means nothing. So when we were filming the Australia thing, the nice thing is we had Josh, we had Keith, we had Christian, or everybody could work cameras. So we took turns, and everybody knew that it's useless if we don't get to eat. So we'd all wait for that right moment to get the shot.
Oh no, but you don't put out any behind the scenes stuff. I'll come tag along and I'll shoot behind the scenes for you.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that. I actually spoke to Ara a while back that we need to do a production where we show how the production works, because it will make for very interesting viewing, because there's going to be a lot of swearing and a lot of stuff going on.
But I've seen campaigns for ads and stuff where the behind the scenes video did better than what the actual ad or production did.
Yeah, I think didn't they do that with Planet Earth or Life? I think they did it with Life, that BBC production where they did a whole series of behind the scenes, and that was almost better to me.
With all those things, I watched the last episode because that's where they do all the behind the scenes stuff. That's the interesting thing for me.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We need to plan it.
Didn't they? Yeah, they showed some behind the scenes stuff with the GTs in Seychelles that they filmed as well, eating the birds.
Yeah, and there was that whole production. So I was talking to them about 3 years before they went in. So what happened is one of my clients sent those guys from BBC, the Gangsters of the Flat. They phoned me up and they asked about what exactly was going on, because this guy Andrew Jensen told them that the GTs were eating birds. We haven't seen this before. So then they phoned me up and I said to them, look, I mean, I'm super a rookie when it comes to camera stuff. I believe it could be captured, but at that point I was still very iffy, because now you need conditions to play right. But it seems like something that happens every time, that time of the year, with the birds and the small babies trying to learn how to fly. And I said to them, so we were kind of back and forth on calls, and then they kind of pulled the trigger. They said, we're going to go for gold. They flew in 1,700 or 1,800 pounds of camera gear, 2 Phantom Flexes, I don't know how many Reds, to get that whole thing done. And I think it took them 3 weeks. They had to go in 2 or 3 times back and forth to go and get like the final shots done, obviously. And this is for 2.5 minutes worth of video. So, I mean, can you imagine the budget on that? It's nuts.
It's insane. But did you get to meet the old man?
I unfortunately didn't get to meet them. When they shot the first one, they wanted me to come with, but I was guiding in Mongolia at the time for the season. And the Dan Vermillion and the guys from Sweetwater Travel have been so good to me through the years. I mean, I had my commitments, and I didn't want to let those guys down. And they had a crew of people at Farquhar with the Flycastaway crew and those guys that could take them out at a time. So it was fine.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I would still love to meet Sir David Attenborough, but
what an honor it must that must be. I see it was his birthday the other day too, like 93 or something now, man. He's seen some things.
Yeah, I believe so.
It's funny, like I don't think it's going to be very tough to do any more BBC or nature shows without that voice. It's so iconic.
Yeah, but I think with the technology now is they can just use of all the content he's said over all these years, they can make up whatever they want in post-production.
Yeah, definitely.
But when you guys are fishing these exotic locations, it's Murungantu in the sticks. Have you had any close calls with dangerous animals, dangerous people, stuff that happened that you had to make plans with?
We've been very lucky with regards to the filming side of stuff where things have touched wood. I mean, there's obviously cameras that break and all that kind of stuff, but we've been lucky in that sense with filming stuff that nothing has gone terribly bad. Guiding wise and fishing wise, I mean, again, very fortunate. Even I've always said that even in the Seychelles, we've been so lucky that there hasn't been every horrible situation. Obviously, there was the situation with the pirates in 2009, and I think I never feel as nervous about it, because at that stage. So I mean, how it went down is just we guided a group of American clients that week. I was on the boat with Ryan and Gerard, and we had just finished the week, and we got off the boat, season done. Francis and them were heading back to the Seychelles. And it was funny, that same day when we got on the flight, we had fish Assumption, where we would usually pick up and drop off, pick up the clients for the Cosmo trips. And we had fished there the morning, looked for some triggerfish. We came around the corner and the Nat Geo boat was with us at the same time. And I looked at it, and then there were some rumors, and I said to Patrick, the boat driver, I said to him, why would pirates want to take the Indian Ocean Explorer, which looks like the worst, and not the Nat Geo boat? And it's crazy. We got off the boat with the clients on the plane, and I think we were still on our way to Mai, or at Mai, and it got taken on its way there. And I mean, that's still very close, but I think that was kind of the closest shave to be a terrible situation, because if you speak to Francis now, I've seen him subsequently, and Pat and those guys that were on the crew, I mean, I don't even think the book does the stuff that those guys went through. It would have been very tough for us to be there with our clients too, because it could have potentially even been worse. So I think that was the closest shave when it comes to any sort of bad situation.
Sure. No, it's that's always one of my worries if I'm out in the sticks is, shit, what do I do if a freaking snake bites me? Or not that I'm scared. I'm like, I always say to the people, I'm more scared of being bitten by ticks in the veld than what I am about snakes. But if you're alone and you break your leg, one of my clients that came in here we had to do like corporate headshots for them, and he was in a cast to his knee. And I said, what happened? He says, no, he went hiking. Yeah, close to where we live, we've got lots of mountains around Worcester, and he went hiking up one of these gorges, and there's like a little stream and everything. And he was by himself. It's the morning. It's like a kilometer away from the cabin where they stayed. And he slipped and fell, and he broke his patella. He broke it. It took like 3 or 4 hours to crawl back through this river and everything back to the cabin, because it's you know what our streams look like. Yeah, you can't walk with one leg in there. It's crazy. And I always have that thing in the back of my head. What the hell do we do when something like this goes on?
Yeah, I think also now, I mean, we don't try and be sissies, but we definitely try and be safe, and especially with the guiding, you give the clients a long brief. I mean, I don't know if I think Jim Klug did a video. There might be a video somewhere on YouTube about him explaining what happened to him in Bolivia, where he was coming down with clients, and those dugout boats that the native Indians take you up and down on, they've got one guy on the motor and then another guy in front that kind of steers the boat. And what happened is they were coming downstream, and the guy with a pole, his pole got stuck in some way, and he didn't want to let go. And at some point he realized he had to let go, and that thing swung around and hit Jim square in the face like this, knocked him out completely. He's a 6'4" guy. He's big. Out of it completely. And if you listen to the whole story about Global Rescue getting him back to the US, it is frightening. So it's rightfully in saying, we South Africans, we always try and be tough and harakat and whatever, but you don't want to be in a bad situation, especially with clients. I mean, it could be very bad. I think, especially, like I said, we've been very lucky in the Seychelles, because a small thing can go terribly wrong really quickly.
But how was it when they started the very first trips to Seychelles? Because I know most of us South Africans, like you said, we dawn into a thing head first and then figure it out when the shit hits the fan. They must have. I'm sure the guys didn't have evacuation plans or medical kits or safety training or anything like that. You go in there, you do it, and
yeah. And if you look at some of the medical aid kit, you know, Keith Rosinas was usually pretty good on that. He had a very good medical aid kit on board, and I mean, he's even put stitches in me. So he definitely had some qualifications. It was good to have the boys on board when we had clients. But I mean, usually you'd kind of hope there's a surgeon on the boat or somebody that can give advice. Usually, there was one incident in the Seychelles, almost one of my first seasons, where a French group went there, and one of the clients got smacked by a manta shrimp. He was standing on the hole, and it cut through his boot, through his foot, onto the bone, and he had to be NPO, next plane out. So we were lucky that didn't happen with us, but he had a bunch of surgeons on the boat, so they knew the procedure to follow.
But that is, yeah, those mantis shrimps are hectic. I think that thing can punch harder than, what did they say? That one thing I checked.
It's like a supersonic boom. It moves quicker than the speed, sound or something. That's how they usually
knock the.
That's why you also can't keep them in a fish tank, is because they can move the claw so quickly that it can crack the glass.
Yeah.
So they can move.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
But that's the other stuff. Then so again, we've got this long safety breathing with clients, and sometimes when you're standing up there and giving it to them, you can see these guys are like, yeah, what do we sign up for? But like cone shells. I mean, if you get stung by a cone shell, go find a shady spot so that at least you don't smell funny when they find you, because it's not going to take long before you're dead. So it's all that kind of stuff. But again, just keep an eye out on the clients, and so usually we try and keep our clients close to us. But I can tell you now, South Africans are the toughest bliksems to keep close to you when it comes to clients. It's weird. Like, my wife and I realize it now, living in the US. We South African through and through. I see that in myself every day, but we are the most difficult clients to guide ever, because we love DIY. We want to always do it ourselves, so the guide can say moerenvlieg. And then we want to kind of like prove something, like we have to go do this. Not that it's a bad thing. I think we're a great, like, our culture is great, because that's how you get stuff done, is you go and get it done. And but yes, you have to kind of keep your eyeballs on that South African. He's about 1 kilometer away from you on the flats, because he's on the drop off, because the Jeets can't be here on the flats. But you've been walking that flat for 10 years, and I know the GTs are going to be here, but you can't argue. But again, sometimes you get surprised. It's in one sense, it's very good to have South African clients with you, because I learn a lot. Because if that guy goes into his own corner and he catches a fish, then I've learned something for my next clients to go and do. So it's always a good thing. And I think like I said again, South Africans, I think, are extremely good when it comes to fishing and guiding. Fly fishermen, when I have a South African on the flat and I ask him to make a back cast, there's nobody else in the world that can make back casts like South Africans. For some reason, people go completely weird when you ask them to do a back cast. South Africans obviously stand in Cozy Bay for hours and days and weeks and do that. So it's nice. Yeah, and catch nothing.
Yeah. But it's when I did my little guiding thing, I wanted to set up like a little guiding operation down in the garden route, where we fish the estuaries and catch leeries and cob and shad and grunter and all these kind of things. But it was difficult, because, like you said, South Africans, they all go down to the garden route over December holiday, and they've got their fly rods in, and then they want to go and figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
At the end of the 3 weeks, they packed the fly rod and the flies and everything away and didn't catch anything. But they didn't want to spend, what did I charge back then? $850 for a day.
Yes, that's nothing.
That's nothing. But yet at that stage, what was I? I was like 25 round about there. $850 a day was good beer money.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I wish we could create a little bit more of a culture in that, because that would also give South Africans that opportunity to get into it, because we've got amazing fisheries. I mean,
Yes.
the saltwater, the Vaal, the Kalahari, the Lesotho, I mean, all those places. But I mean, having learned so much through guiding now, I would definitely pay a guide with his expertise, somebody that's done it all the time in the water. Like you said, it's here in Texas, you get the weekend warriors and a lot of guys that ask you all the information and stuff. But I mean, I just can't give it to you, because that's blood, sweat, and tears. Even in Texas now, I've got clients fishing with me that's fished Texas for 20 years, but they still want to come and fish with me because maybe I'm doing something a little bit different. Than I move around a lot, and I'd still get super excited every day I'm on the water. But I wish we could just get that culture a little bit stronger in South Africa, because the world cannot have enough South African guides, and it's necessary. And I know African waters have done an amazing job, and every time I fish with those guys too, our clients get nervous about the thought of malaria. The Tourette's fishing, or the African waters guys have collectively had more malaria than any people in the world. I mean, that's crazy, those guys, and they guide through it. Greg Gowie was with us in Cameroon last year, and when he was sitting shivering there on the rock, he said, I've got malaria, I'm taking pills, but I'd rather sit here sweating with you guys catching fish than lie down. It's crazy.
But I wanted to say something about that now, but I probably wanted just to talk shit. So what's next on the cards for you? Oh, this is what I wanted to say. If you look at the internet and Facebook and Instagram, all these things, it looks like the guides are making a pretty decent living in the States. Can they do well for themselves, or is it just hand to mouth?
Yes, I can tell you now that with my personal guiding outfitting operation that I've got in Texas now, I mean, yes, it's a good living. I mean, the daily charge, and I'm happy to share this information. I mean, I'm the least expensive guide on the Texas coast, and I'm charging $650 a day, and then most of the clients are American clients, so they've got a good culture in tipping and stuff, and they're always happy. They listen to what you say. I mean, some of these guides are making over $200,000 a year through guiding, and that's kind of the guide payments that they get. So, I mean, you have to keep your schedule busy. It's very difficult to build up that client base, but you just do that through hard work. So you're going to pay your dues in the beginning, but it could legitimately be a job that you do, and if you spend your money wisely, you can end up retiring on that stuff. For example, I've been always a little bit just learned it from my parents to work well with my money. I'm putting money away for retirement. My wife and I invest in the good stuff. Like I said, this home we invested now is a great home, but it's an investment property. Looking at investing in a place where I'm guiding at, so that I can get clients to stay there and keep building that stuff. So it's legitimately something that you can retire on, but you just have to do it. And unfortunately, some of the guys that have gone through tougher times now with COVID, unfortunately, Florida closed, the Keys closed out completely for any non-resident people to come to the Keys. So those guys have got a tough time. But again, there's some of them, if you look at some of the skiffs the guys are running, and some of them are running multiple skiffs. So I think sometimes they're living a little bit large. I've got a great skiff, but I don't have the most expensive one. If you're looking at a Chittim, which is something that I'd love to get, I love my beaver tail. They're great people, but like a Chittim you're looking at $90,000 to $100,000 on just your skiff. Then you need a truck to pull it, or bucky to pull it with. The costs can add up. So, but like I said, I've set it all up. I've got all my stuff ready to go, and it ended up costing me a lot less, and I'm making a good living. I'm happy. I've been lucky.
But also from what I see online, when I look at camera gear and all sorts, stuff is generally a lot cheaper or more affordable in the States than what it is over here. So if you look at a top range camera, like let's take Canon 1DX. It's 100,000 Rand in South Africa, but in the States, it's $6,000. It's a lot easier for you to make $6,000 than it is for me to make 100,000.
Correct. Yes, and that's why, you know, we don't want to feel, I don't want people to think that we left South Africa because X, Y, and Z, but our quality of life currently is much better than what we could have had in South Africa with the homes and what we have and my guiding operation. And exactly like you said, I can go and buy that stuff easier with my income than I can with for example, having done it in South Africa.
Sorry.
What a crowd.
So when you work from home.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so it's definitely the quality of life you can build that we were able to build in the US, and there's a lot of South African guides that want to come and try and make the transition. But the one thing I have to say to anybody, and I'm happy to help anybody that would potentially want to make the move to the US, the immigrating to the US, getting your visas, getting your green card is a brutal process, but it's going to cost you money and everything. But for us, it's been worth it.
I just had a question here from Stephen Smith. He says, do we get discount if we come to the States to come fish with you as a South African?
For sure. We can put it in Ranskis. We can make it in rands. Then it's fine. No, I'm happy. I'm happy to take South Africans out for sure. It's very refreshing.
We'll bring some Wellington VO with for that.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need. There's a shortage of that. You know, I'm a Dutchman, so brandewyn and Coke is lacking here.
But how's it? Well, I've worked with a couple of American clients. I do a little bit of work in the hunting industry as well. Have you bought a gun yet?
Yes, strange enough, I think I'm the only person in Texas that does not have a gun. And the funny thing is, the people that own guns here, I promise you, the person that owns one owns another 10 of them. I know people that own 100. I mean, yeah. I don't know what doomsday prepping they prep for, but I said to my wife, we at least need to get some kind of handgun or shotgun here at some point.
So you can talk with her around the barbecue.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think also a bow will cut it. These guys have got like 50 cals and all sorts of big stuff. But you know, the laws also in Texas, it's so different. I mean, yeah, it's probably a weird subject, but you know, if somebody comes on my lawn and I tell them, look, you are trespassing, I can shoot that person. It's the craziest thing, you know, like as a South African, you know, like that's completely, but these guys, some of them, if you go onto their ranches, their farms and stuff, I mean, they'll shoot a shotgun around your head first before they ask any questions. So people are very protective, and you know the Second Amendment is to be able to protect yourself. So everybody has guns and knives and all sorts of stuff. Yeah,
I hunted with guys from Wisconsin last year, and the one guy, he had 400 guns.
Yeah. For what? Yes.
and the other guy, he's probably our age, and he heads up a big company. And if you talk about a gun, he's had it or he's planning on getting it, and it was just it's absolutely insane. But yeah, the Americans are a different crowd, but they're cool guys.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's definitely they. I mean, sure, I've got so many American friends now and good clients. They definitely a lot different than South Africans, and I mean, not in a bad way at all. They're great people. Like I said, guiding wise, they're always very appreciative and listen to every word you say. It's very easy. They've got good for guiding wise. They've got a great culture of tipping and showing gratitude and. You know, I've always seen the tipping stuff from guiding as a bonus because you have to work for it. I've said to clients, even when I was head guide on a location, you know, I always explain to the clients, this is all a bonus for us. I mean, it's always assumed that it should be given, but, you know, I feel the guides need to work for it, which I think most guys do. I mean, no, there's no, you're working for that money, but Americans are great people. And, I think there's still a lot of people that get the wrong impression from them being a little bit loud and being America. So it's, but yeah, they're good people, great people.
And somebody just asked me now, is why did you choose to settle in Texas?
So Austin, Texas is a lot like I see it a lot like Cape Town. It's very diverse. You won't think it's like Texas, like normal Texas. It's very diverse, got a great crowd of people. It's a very festive town, so it's got a lot of music. The one other reason is my wife and I wanted to settle down somewhere where it would be a good investment to buy a property, and Austin was the biggest growing. I mean, our home is now close to the new Apple campus. Tesla's actually moving their whole factory from California over to Austin. So it's very investment wise, and just the people. And also I've been ambassador for Yeti now for a long time. And my first introduction, they invited me to come to a fly fishing film tour, and a good friend of mine, Joe Cooley from Yeti, he took me around town and we had a fantastic time, and I immediately said to him, we're going to move to Austin. This is going to be the place. And now it's nice. I'm 2.5 hours away from where I'm guiding, so I would go out guiding, and I can be close enough to him. You know, I would still love to guide in all the crazy locations and be in the middle of nowhere, but the problem with that is you can't sustain a family and have a wife and all that kind of stuff doing that. It's just the reality. Everybody says, no, my girlfriend accepts that I'm away for 6 months. That's gonna reach an end. That's not gonna work. So now I can guide, I can be close. If anything happens, I got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, no, that is one of the things. And in the hunting thing that I've worked with a lot, last year, the outfitter that I hunted with is that the girl who's part of the company, her husband he's the head PH there. And she said to me, she said that if the wives or the girlfriends are not involved in the actual hunting industry or the business, there's no way that the relationship will last. It is just too difficult. And I'm pretty sure you've seen it as well. The guys bring their wives with, and there must have been some of them. I'm pretty sure you've got some funny stories on that as well.
Yes, yeah. The thing is, you know, I mean, it's there's also a dreamy idea. So the year in 2012, when I guided 320 days, my wife came with me to Norway. But again, I was guiding in the Seychelles for a long time, Mongolia, and back in the Seychelles. So that period that we were in Norway was the only period that we were together for quite some time. And we were so busy at the time. You know, the good thing about it is that you do appreciate your time together a lot. So when I'm away, I come back, it's great. We want to do things together. It's fantastic. But, you know, there's a certain sustainable time that lasts, because sometimes you have to be around, you have to help out. When I'm in the Seychelles, and I used to call my wife, I'm super stressed always about something having gone wrong, especially when she was living in South Africa on her own. You know, we can't avoid, oops.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just lost your screen. I don't know.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. We can't avoid the fact that there is definitely there's certain unsafe elements, and that was a nerve-wracking time. But so to have to let's say, for example, you have your girlfriend or wife working with you in a lodge, and you kind of managing it together. If your relationship makes it through that, it can make it through most things, because you're going to be tested a lot.
Yeah, I just said I want to tell you a story. One of the other places I hunted was in the Kalahari, and the one guy that was there, Frikkie. Now, Frikkie was, this was in 2017. At that stage, he was about 45 or so, and he got married to a lady that was about the same age or so. And he said to her, don't come and sickle with me when I come back from the bush, because you can have problems. He says the next time he got back home, she was pregnant.
Well, yes. Well, there's some of the guides that I know too that's gone on seasons, come back, visited, gone out guiding again, and then their ladies are pregnant, and then the family starts. Then it is going to become even more difficult to guide. So that definitely does something that does happen.
Stephen Smith has got another fishing question here. He said he's interested to know if the redfish will always eat a surface fly, or if it's only under certain conditions.
So redfish definitely don't always eat surface flies. So with Texas, the nice thing about Texas is it's a year-round fishery. But when the winter kicks in and it becomes a little bit colder, the fish don't always focus on that top water stuff. So now, when for us it's spring and summer, I'm definitely starting to use more surface gurglers and that kind of stuff. The funny thing about a redfish, the classic Texas fishing, I've caught some huge fish, big bull reds and tarpon and all sorts of stuff and jacks. But the classic Texas fishing is super shallow, where their backs are out, and then sometimes, it's like any single fish where you have to be very cautious and place the fly good position, but their eyesight's very terrible. So you have to kind of swing it past his nose to come and eat it. And in those scenarios, when you're fishing the super shallow stuff, they get very nervous on that popping noise, unless you've got popping shrimp going off, because that's what I've had the last couple of months. You get these shrimps and you actually hear them pop, and then you can also hear surface, but not always. No, I wish it was that way, but sometimes you need something that goes down a little bit and just crosses eyes. So that doesn't always work. But the most amazing thing is some of these bull reds that I'm catching that's coming up now they're eating crabs the size of a dinner plate. You just the explosions that you see that happen on the water is mind blowing. But I'm still very cautious about what I put on social media with regards to the fishing here in Texas. And the reason being is I just wanted to show as much respect to the long-term guides there and not go too viral with their fishery and everybody goes there, because there's already a lot of boats that we're fighting with, and not everybody knows how to drive a boat. They just drive over the flats and scare the fish. So I'm trying to keep a lot of it as low key as possible.
There's a guy in New York. He lives in close to Montauk, and Sergio Dias. I'm not sure if you've seen him on the internet or stuff like that. But he's got a spot then. They're doing it now, is where they're catching these monster bluefish, or what we know as elf here by us. Yeah. Listen, the average South African get excited if they catch an elf that size. If they make a bag limit size of 30 centimeters, they are stoked. These guys are catching freaking elf the size of my table. It is insane.
It's phenomenal, and I've seen that. I've said to them, and sometimes these guys, when they're fishing for stripers, they're not even, they consider the bluefish like a trash fish. And I tell them, like, we'd give anything to catch those things 3, 4, 5 kilogram, and they're catching them consistently like that on the surface. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's some of the cultures that's been built in specific areas around the fishing, like, for example, here in Texas. So with the movie, I'm going to have interviews with all sorts of different genres of types of people. And 99% of those people see jacks as trash fish. They don't want to catch them. They don't want to hook them. They don't want anything to do with them. And that's perfect, because that's more for me. And the same with the bluefish. You'll find the big striper anglers, when they're fishing for stripers, that's all trash for them. They don't want to catch those things because obviously they bite the flies off and they're not targeting them. So it's weird. But it's exactly like you said. We give anything to catch a 1-2 kilo, all that size of a bluefish or elf on fly.
And what was the other thing that I wanted to ask you about? And Stephen again asked, what weight rods are you using?
For the flat fishing on the reds, I use a 7 or 8 weight, and then sometimes you also encounter those big black drum. I got one recently that was, I think it was like 35-40 pounds. On the flats, but they're not super strong fish, so you can catch them with those 7-8 weight rods. And then for the big bull reds, I'd use a 10 weight or 11 weight. And the jacks too, we lost the jack, so the jacks are running between sort of 15 to 40 pounds. And the other day we actually lost one, because there's a lot of current too, so we lost one after 30 minutes that opened up a hook. So they're super strong, so 11 or 12 weight works for them. And then the tarpon, I use the 11 and 12 weights.
What's your guilty pleasure with your fishing that you don't post anywhere? Do you spinner baits?
Oh, I mean, I had a great session. My dad came to visit me last year. My mom and dad came to visit us last year, and it was so great because I mean, we get to fish together almost never again. Well, very little, and I was definitely throwing that spinning rod coffee grinder flat out with him, and we had a great time. We caught some massive jacks, and it was great. I mean, between that and just my biggest guilty pleasure, and most guides know me as the cookie monster, is always having chocolates and biltong when I'm out guiding, and it's my addiction. I can say no to a drink, but I can very impossible to say no to a chocolate and a biltong and that kind of stuff. But I still, you know, my roots. I love rock and surf fishing too. Make no mistake, catching a big shark on a rock and surf stick there's nothing wrong with that.
But I've got. I hope Stephen is listening, because I've got a funny feeling he's busy planning something. That's why he's asking all these questions. So Stephen, you need to put in a bottle of Wellington VO and some Top Deck chocolate for Yaku.
This is flakes of ticks. I'm done. You don't get those we've got amazing chocolates in South Africa. Flake ticks, chocolate logs, you know, we've got none of that in the US. It's only Hershey's and peanut butter cups.
And rock and surf, have you tried that in the States, or is it not big?
So that's my next step. If I can get a place down there, then I can keep some of my stuff there. But there's some really good, especially big sharks. There's those 15-foot hammerhead sharks that swim around there. There's even tiger sharks, big Zambesis, spinners, all sorts of sharks. But I haven't, the guiding schedule, especially now. I mean, yes, my season is getting, June is fully booked, July is getting fully booked, August. So the season is actually, again, like I said, been lucky with that, and lots of Texas clients. So I'm going to have to make some time, because the nice thing on the Texas coast is there's big areas that you can still drive down. And I'd love to go and do some, like the old school, where we went with the bucky down the beach and find some good spots and put out some big baits. And because there's guys doing it, but I just haven't had a chance to do it. But it's going to happen.
There's a guy, I see his stuff every now and again on YouTube, and he fishes somewhere down there. I think it's more down towards Florida, but it's in that vicinity. It's big, but he goes down to the beach and they chuck spinners and little lures and stuff, and he catches skippies, like sprinkles, you know, you call them ladyfish over there.
Yeah.
And it's like we sitting here, we're like, shit, we hardly ever get a chance to catch them. I lost 3 skippies in February in a spot where we found them the first time in 10 years in the garden route, and now it's been 12 years since we found them then. I found them in the same spot again, and I couldn't land 3 of them. It's a single fish that I still dream about it at night.
South Africa will be that one.
Yeah, so...
But I think I know exactly who you're talking about with those. But that's, again, the other fish. I mean, I took out clients last year sometime, and we got onto those skippies. I mean, to the point where, I mean, we were looking for tarpon. We saw some rolling. We couldn't get onto them. I think we hooked one, jumped it, got it off. And then just to kind of get some time and just keep looking for them, we were catching, I mean, skippies left, right, and center. And again, those ladyfish are seen as trash fish. And I just wish they just see the appreciation of how hard South Africans work to just catch one of those things on Swartkops or wherever. I mean, the ones that we do get on South African coast, when you get them, you get some good ones and they fight proper. But yeah, these things are also turbocharged. I had one guiding the other day where we got on the flats that thing ran away so quickly, the guy's spool popped off and it was a whole circus. But yeah, I mean, they're great fish, great fish. I have to admit this, is that I'm a fish slut. If it swims, I'll catch it. It doesn't matter to me. I'm in a happy place when I've got something on the end of my line, or even just out there. So to me, I'm definitely not a snob, and I wish all people were like that, but some people get a little bit too particular.
I had another question here. Is there a growing interest in the South African fishery from the American clients?
There's definitely there's a lot more awareness that needs to be created. I have been invited to go to some shops and start talking about that, and that's again just about getting some time and going. I'm planning on going to all the different shops and just really doing an explanation or a presentation on all the South African fisheries. The only thing I would say that makes it difficult for them is just to travel that far. But I think through all the South African guides and African waters and those guys, we've created some good awareness about like the Kalahari and Lesotho, and the coast still definitely needs a little bit more. I mean, I think grunter are one of the coolest fish to catch. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, it's as tricky as a permit, and they're just very pretty fish, and they'll drive you insane. There's still a lot to show the US crowd, but I'll be working on that. Like I said, I'll try and fly the South African flag as best as possible over here.
But I think the average American, his perception of Africa is coming to catch tiger fish, and then the second one after that will be Nile perch. And yet you're sitting on the west coast of Africa with massive tarpons. You've got if you just go down to Angola, it's all these places still on the bucket list. You've got those massive garrick and learies in the surf. I think we've got an untapped market over here.
That when I tell people, still you would not believe the high percentage of people that don't know that there's tarpon in Africa. It's crazy. And obviously Arno's doing like so much groundwork in the African water guys and all along that Angola coast. To be honest, it's one of my favorite places in the world to fish. Anywhere along that west coast of Africa, whether it be for tarpon or those learies or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not always easy. I mean, you're not standing usually on a skiff and doing all that stuff. It's in the surf and all that kind of stuff, but that just makes it so much more fun. So I think you're 100% right. There's definitely a lot more publicity that needs to go that way. And hopefully then South Africans can make sure that they keep those fisheries well, and then people traveling around to keep those guys busy with the guiding. Definitely.
Is there any way that you can, apart from the guiding companies, that you can team up with like one of the hunting outfitters here? Because there's a lot of people from America coming each year to come and do hunting in South Africa. And a lot of those guys are very good fishermen as well. But I don't think that they are aware of the fishing possibilities that we've got in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, it's kind of, so the normal thing that I get with clients is if they want to go, they're going to go on safari and then they want to go and fish somewhere back to back or something like that, which usually, like you said, is tiger fish or Nile perch or something like that. But I definitely think there's a huge scope to try and get those, because I mean, there's all these big hunting shows where I think there's still a lot, and it's funny, like even how little some of the hunting guys know about what fishing they can do out in Africa. Because I mean, they're probably like me, very, very, very sort of like focused on the hunting and what possibilities that are there. But like you said, most of them also love to fish because they love to be outside. So definitely a lot of room. And again, South Africa is I can't, like when I speak to people, it's still one of the coolest places, the nicest places in the world. I mean, we've got it all. We've got obviously the safaris and the wildlife and everything, but just our climate. I don't think South Africans know how lucky they have with climate. I mean, in America, you've got places like I wouldn't say that we're that close, but here we've got hurricanes, tornadoes. I mean, then there's California with earthquakes, and then there's all sorts of snowstorms and all sorts of hazardous stuff that happens, which we're not used to in South Africa. We were staying in Massachusetts for 6 months before we came to Austin, and snow is a very dreamy image that you get of living in snow, but it is super cock for a South African because you have to plow your driveway and you have to do all sorts of stuff you're not used to doing, and snow's only pretty when it falls. Then it becomes black ice and it becomes like stuff you slip on, and so we're not made for that.
Your bakkie rust underneath because they thrust
flat
on the roads.
No, definitely. So I mean, again, like I said, there's so many things that's still uniquely South African. I mean, a braai. I can make as many braais here in the US as I want, but it's not the same as having a scarp choppy in South Africa. It's never going to be the same.
And the Americans like eating sheep as well.
That's the funny thing is they don't like we struggle to find scarp chops and scarp boat and those things in the US. We have found now. I mean, Costco, a big shopping center that's a wonder of its own. We found some really good lamb and stuff there, but for the most part, very hard to find. They only eat steak and pork and chicken for the most part. So, but yeah, I mean, we always love when we go back to South Africa. I mean, we always love South Africa.
All right, that's awesome. Jako, we're coming up close to an hour and a half, and I can still probably chat for another 2 or 3 hours. I've got no problem in that. I know your day is starting, and I've got to start sorting out the kids, and my dad just arrived, so we're probably going to have a braai now.
Lekker, man, lekker. The one thing I do want to mention to any South Africans also that's listening, is that so I get a lot of questions about fly religion for South Africa. So the brand is still relatively new. I'm building it up. The idea is still created South African. So I've been trying to work on a way to get the brand to South Africa. There is some insanely cool stuff coming clothing wise. I mean, I wish I could share all of it, but I'm going to try and work on getting the brand to South Africa, hopefully this year or next year. But there's still a lot of things. It's a very slow process building a clothing brand. So just watch the space. It is coming. Don't worry.
Is that your project that you're doing, or are you doing it with other people?
So I've got an investor, a friend of mine that I also work with on the Dagon apparel that's here in Texas. So he's one of the investors for Fly Religion. And then Johan de Priya is basically doing all the artwork for us. So we're going to have insanely cool custom, purely Johan designs, nobody else's designs on the clothing. It's going to be some technical stuff, not overly technical, because we still want it to be cool so you can go wear it if you go out to the movies or restaurant and stuff, and still have we've got, like I said, I wish I could share because I've got 2 phases ahead of the game already, and we just keep working on plans. It's just because we're working on not a massive budget, and making clothes in such a saturated market, you have to be very careful and just slowly get there. So we're going to get there, and it's going to be amazing.
And also the problem with that we sit in South Africa is that everything that you freaking import clothing wise is there's like a 45% duty fee on. So are you stuff locally made in South Africa? So you
I'm still working with a pinpoint company in the US, so not now, but I definitely want to get some fabrics from South Africa and some other places in Africa that we're going to do some designs with. But at the moment, it's still in the coming from the US. But that's the one hurdle that I want to get across. But I might be able to do something linking in with a fly fishing film tour and getting some stuff across. But that's also the other thing. We're still pending the fly fishing film tour in South Africa. Keith, myself, and Joanne are working on getting potentially still, but like you know better than anybody else, is we just don't know. It's a day by day thing, especially with when you guys can get out of the house.
Yeah, it's difficult, but I think you know what we should do? We should set up a drive-in.
Yeah, we're kind of thinking on solutions. I'm working with the guys from the US Fly Fishing Film Tour. They're thinking on solutions. We just want to make sure that it's safe, and I really want the guys from South Africa to still see it this year, because it's a really good show, and lots of fish porn. So we'll work on a plan.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's awesome. Jako, I'm going to put all your links in the description, where people can find you, and if there's anything that you want me to put in there, just please send it over, and I'll put it in for you. I've got no problem doing that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And always let me know. And for anybody, if there's anything I can help with, always feel free to reach out. If it takes me a bit of time, I'm out guiding or doing something, but I'll get back and I'll do my best. It just might take some time, but I really appreciate taking the time and having me on. And I'm very, very, very blessed. And thank you so much.
It's been a 3 or 4 week process to get here, but it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we can have more chats. We'll definitely link up and chat more often.
Yeah, Jako, thank you again. I really, really appreciate it, and I think the South African guys as well. They appreciate the time that you've given to chat to us.
Thank you so much.
Right, have an awesome day, and send my regards to you there and on that side, and go buy a gun.
Ja, lekker. Een lekker braai.
Cheerio. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.